All right, so we're diving into Gurdjieff's fourth way today.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen, all the stuff that you sent over,
Right.
it seems like you're really interested in how this whole system, kind of shakes up the traditional spiritual paths
Yeah.
and
Because
offers, well, maybe a faster route to something more than just like ordinary human experience.
yeah, it definitely makes some pretty bold claims
It does.
about that. A more harmonious and accelerated development.
Yeah, and some of these ideas, I got to say, are pretty wild.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like the idea of the four bodies,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Physical, astral, mental, and divine.
Yeah.
There's this one passage in the essay that you pointed out that just really struck me, where it talks about even the soul
Right.
being potentially like mortal
Hmm.
in Gurdjieff's system.
Right.
That's pretty intense.
It is. It's a pretty radical departure from
Totals.
most of the mainstream
Yeah.
spiritual teachings.
Yeah, definitely challenges that concept of the
Yeah.
eternal soul
Eternal soul.
that a lot of us are, kind of familiar with.
Right. Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it really throws the whole question of immortality into a new light, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, what if
Yeah.
achieving like a true lasting existence requires more than just faith
Yeah.
or belief, but it also requires some kind of dedicated effort to developing all aspects of our being,
Yeah.
This passage, for example, really links the potential for the soul's mortality to a lack of work, which is, a really core concept in the fourth way.
Right.
It suggests that without putting in that conscious effort, even our souls could kind of
Wow.
disintegrate
Yeah.
or, be subject to dissolution.
That's a lot to grapple with.
It is.
I mean, it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
what does this work actually look like?
Right.
And is it even possible, like, for us regular humans to actually achieve that?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
Well, Gurdjieff certainly believed it was, and his system lays out a framework, how to actually do that work.
Yeah.
One of the key ideas that you seem really interested in is this distinction between essence and personality.
Yeah, that's super intriguing to me.
Right.
That whole idea
Mm-hmm.
that our essence is like this innate,
Yeah.
unconscious,
Yeah.
tendencies, like this hidden, truer self
Right.
that might be like buried underneath, layers of
Mm-hmm.
conditioning and social masks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the essay you shared does point out that there are some problems with how Gurdjieff uses this term essence.
Right.
Like, it could be confusing compared to some
Yeah, it's easy to confuse it with
more conventional spiritual ideas.
understandings. Yeah.
But I don't know, there's still something so compelling about this idea that we might be living out a version of ourselves that isn't fully aligned with who we really are.
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's really what Gurdjieff meant when he talked about personality. It's
Yes.
like the collection of habits and beliefs and behaviors that we've adopted over time,
Right.
often unconsciously.
Right.
And that creates this kind of persona that we present to the world.
Right.
He argued that, most people are just dominated by their personality. They're just operating on autopilot,
Right.
reacting mechanically to life's events.
Interesting.
But underneath that, he believed, lies the essence, our true nature, with its unique potential and purpose.
So how do we get to that?
Well,
How do we uncover it?
that's the big question.
The essay mentions like these three stories or brains.
Right.
That might give us a way to like
Yeah.
understand our inner workings,
Mm-hmm.
but it also says there's no scientific evidence for this concept.
Yeah, that's a common criticism.
So does that mean it's not useful?
Well, even though it lacks scientific backing,
Right.
Gurdjieff's division of humans into those three centers, intellectual, emotional, and instinctive moving sexual, it might still be a useful framework, even if we approach it kind of metaphorically.
Yeah.
Think of them like stories as different ways that we process information and engage with the world. The essay points out that, each of these stories has its own strengths and weaknesses, and most of us are kind of unconsciously dominated by one or two of them.
Oh, interesting.
And that can lead to imbalances, and it can prevent us from accessing our full potential.
So it's like we're running these programs,
Yeah, exactly.
but we don't even know
It's aware.
which ones are in control.
Right.
Wow.
Exactly. And Gurdjieff believed that a lot of traditional spiritual paths really just focus on developing one of these stories.
Okay.
Like, think of a monk, right? Focusing on the emotional center through prayer, and meditation.
Right.
So he proposed this fourth way,
Mm-hmm.
which aims to work on all the centers simultaneously for a more balanced and holistic approach.
So is it truly original, this fourth way?
Right.
Or is it just like a rebranding?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
That's what the essay asks, too.
Yeah.
Like, is it repackaging ancient wisdom in a way that, like, appeals to the modern world?
To modern sensibilities, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a debate that's still going on.
Yeah.
To really dig into that, we need to look at his cosmology, which is...
All right, let's do it.
It's a whole other...
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, it's pretty out there.
It is. It's very...
It's like musical scales as blueprints for the universe and different laws of physics for the sun and moon.
Yeah, it's a very different...
It sounds like science fiction.
It does. It sounds very different from our current scientific worldview.
So he called it the ray of creation, right?
Right. And he was trying to map out this hierarchy of levels or cosmoses.
Okay.
Starting with the absolute and then descending all the way down to the moon.
Okay, so each note on the musical scale...
Yeah, he associates...
represents, like, a different level.
A different level of reality.
And the number of laws determines.
Yeah, how things operate at that level.
Wow.
That's the basic idea.
Oh, yeah.
But the essay does point out
that
it's not scientifically accurate.
Right.
And lacks any real empirical support.
So should we just chuck it?
Yeah.
Is it just like a fanciful idea?
Right. I mean,
or could there be something more to it?
Yeah, could it be valuable even if it's not...
Even if it's not scientifically valid?
Scientifically valid, yeah. It's a great question. I mean, while it might not hold up to scientific scrutiny, it might still be a symbolic or metaphorical understanding of like these levels of reality and where we fit into it. Some scholars think that Gurdjieff wasn't really trying to give a literal model of the universe, but more like a map for understanding different levels of consciousness.
Oh, that's interesting.
And the process of spiritual evolution.
I see, yeah.
So less about the physical universe and more about the inner...
The inner world.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
I want to circle back to the Enneagram because that's another thing that I know you're really interested in.
Yeah.
And it seems like Gurdjieff had a very particular interpretation of it, but the essay you shared raises some serious questions about like its origins and even its value.
Its cognitive value, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Gurdjieff claimed it originated from ancient Sumeria and Islamic mysticism.
Yeah.
And he interpreted it through the law of seven, which he thought governed, you know, how everything unfolded.
Right.
But the essay argues there's no evidence to support his claims about the origins and that his interpretation doesn't really offer much practical value.
So is it just a mystical curiosity then?
Oh.
Or is there another way to understand it?
Right. That maybe gives us more...
Insightful.
Yeah, that's more useful, right?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
The essay hints at this traditional perspective on the Enneagram.
Yeah.
That's very different from Gurdjieff's.
Okay.
It suggests that the Enneagram might be like a hologram of the universe.
Interesting.
Reflecting both the macrocosm, the universe as a whole, and the microcosm, like the individual human being.
Okay.
So the Enneagram is a symbol of both how the universe unfolds.
Wow.
And the process of human transformation.
A hologram of the universe.
Yeah.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is a pretty...
How does that even work?
Big idea.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into that, I think it would be helpful to take a step back.
Okay.
And look at the influences that shaped Gurdjieff's thinking.
Okay.
Because to understand his ideas, we need to understand where he was coming from.
All right, let's do it. All right, so Gurdjieff's influences.
Yeah.
The essay mentions three main sources that seem to have really shaped his thinking.
Right.
Theosophy, Rosicrucianism, and Sufism. Now, I know a little bit about Theosophy.
Yeah.
Madame Blavatsky, Secret Masters, all that.
Right.
But the other two I'm less familiar with.
Yeah.
So where do we see their fingerprints, like on Gurdjieff's work?
Well, you hit the nail on the head with Theosophy.
Yeah.
It's woven all throughout his teachings. Yeah. Like the idea of multiple bodies, the concept of these hidden masters guiding humanity, and this emphasis on evolution as a spiritual imperative.
Yeah.
All of these are key themes in Theosophy that you see really strongly reflected in Gurdjieff's work as well.
But the essay also says that Gurdjieff, wasn't exactly a fan of theosophy.
Right.
He would criticize it.
Publicly, even mocked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we square that with the fact that there are all these
Right. It's a bit of a paradox.
connections? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, the essay suggests that maybe his public criticism was kind of a strategic move to distance himself and create this aura of originality. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
So maybe he was taking these theosophical building blocks and rearranging them into a new structure that he could call his own.
Okay, so kind of building off of it.
Yeah.
But still making it his own thing.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about Rosicrucianism then?
Right.
Because the essay mentions that it was a big influence, especially in Russia.
Yeah.
Where Gurdjieff was teaching.
Yeah.
So what was it about Rosicrucianism that he connected with?
Well, Rosicrucianism, especially in the early 20th century, was really all about this idea of bridging esoteric wisdom and modern science.
Okay.
So they wanted to integrate spiritual insights with a scientific understanding of the world.
Right.
And you really see this reflected in Gurdjieff's approach.
I see. So is that where we see the influence in his cosmology?
Yeah.
All those like intricate diagrams.
Right.
Trying to map out the universe using like musical scales and mathematical laws.
It's that blend of mysticism and scientific language.
Right.
That makes his work so fascinating and also so challenging, right?
Yeah, because it's hard to categorize it.
Right.
Like, is this science? Is this mysticism? What is this?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he uses diagrams, he uses mathematical formulas, you know, all this kind of terminology that seems to be borrowed from science.
Right.
But he's ultimately dealing with spiritual experiences that are very hard to quantify. Exactly.
And then we got Sufism. And I know you're really interested in...
Yeah, the Eastern influences.
Yeah, how Gurdjieff incorporated all these Eastern ideas.
Right.
And the essay mentions that he actually spent...
Yeah, he spent time in the East.
Yeah, time in the East, immersing himself in these traditions.
Right.
So was he like a secret Sufi master?
Well, that's a common misconception.
Is it?
Yeah, it's probably fueled by his own mystique.
Right.
And, you know, he deliberately cultivated that Eastern teacher persona.
Okay.
But while he clearly drew inspiration from Sufi practices, especially like the dances and the movements, the essay argues that the core of his teachings is actually quite different.
Okay, so what are the key differences then?
Well, Sufism at its heart is very rooted in Islamic theology. It emphasizes surrender to the divine will and achieving union with God through practices like chanting, meditation, devotional rituals. Gurdjieff, on the other hand, really focuses on self-development and like awakening the individual's potential through conscious effort and self-transformation.
So it's more about human potential than divine union.
Yeah, it's a subtle but important distinction.
Okay.
And, you know, while he borrowed elements from Sufi practices, he really adapted and integrated them into...
Right, so like a master chef.
Yeah, exactly.
Taking these different ingredients.
Right, blending them.
And making his own
special dish.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've explored all these influences that shaped his thinking.
Right.
Let's dive into work itself.
Yeah.
Like the practices that he actually developed.
Right.
To, you know, create this transformation.
Right.
The essay focuses on 4 key ones. Self-observation, self-remembering, conscious labor, and intentional suffering. They sound, well...
They're not easy.
Not easy, yeah.
That's for sure.
Not even appealing, to be honest.
Wait, but they're not supposed to be a walk in the park.
Okay.
Gurdjieff's methods are designed to really challenge us, shake us out of our complacency, and push us beyond our limits. You know, all 4 of these practices revolve around this idea of becoming more conscious, more present, less mechanical in our actions and reactions.
So you mentioned self-observation.
Yeah.
Seems pretty straightforward, but is it really just about... Like,
it's more nuanced.
It's paying attention.
Yeah. It's not just passively noticing your thoughts as they flit through your mind. It's about stepping back and observing your inner world.
Okay.
Your thoughts, emotions, physical sensations.
Right.
Habits, automatic reactions.
Yeah.
As if you were like a detached scientist studying a specimen.
Wow. Okay. So becoming aware of all those things that we do on autopilot, those unconscious patterns.
Right.
Interesting.
And the essay actually points out that this can be both liberating and potentially dangerous.
Dangerous? How so?
Yeah, because if you take it to an extreme
Okay.
without balancing it with other practices,
Right.
it can lead to a kind of dissociation
Right.
from your own experience. It's like you're constantly analyzing yourself
Right.
instead of actually living.
Right. You get stuck in your head.
Yeah, exactly. Detached from your body, your emotions, even your sense of self.
So finding that sweet spot
Yeah.
where you're aware,
Right.
but not overanalyzing.
Exactly. Present, but not detached.
Got it. Okay, so what about self-remembering then?
Right.
How's that different?
So self-remembering takes self-observation to another level. It's not just about observing.
Right.
It's about actively remembering yourself in every moment.
So your presence, your being.
Right, your being, exactly.
Gurdjieff described it as like this sudden flash of awareness.
Okay.
Like a jolt of electricity where you suddenly see yourself and your situation clearly without the usual filters and distortions of your personality.
Okay.
It's like waking up from a dream.
Sounds intense.
It can be.
Yeah.
It's a very challenging practice.
Okay.
But it has the potential for profound transformation.
Right.
It's like jolting yourself awake from the sleep of ordinary consciousness.
Yeah, because he talked about...
the soul being asleep.
Yeah, being asleep, right, that most people are just kind of...
Sleepwalking.
Yeah, sleepwalking through life.
Yeah, exactly.
Driven by unconscious impulses.
Right.
Yeah.
He argued that true awakening requires more than just intellectual understanding.
Okay.
It demands a fundamental shift in our being.
Right.
Like a conscious effort to remember ourselves in every moment.
I see. So this brings us to, conscious labor.
Yeah, conscious labor and intentional suffering.
And intentional suffering, which...
they're all about cultivating.
Yeah, they don't sound easy.
No.
They sound like they require,
Commitment.
Commitment, yeah, a lot of it.
Yeah.
So tell me about those.
So conscious labor, it's about
Yeah.
engaging in actions that are difficult or unpleasant.
Right.
But doing them with full awareness and intention.
Okay.
It's about overcoming resistance, pushing through discomfort,
Right.
developing a strong will.
So not like seeking out suffering.
Right.
But using the challenges that already exist.
Exactly, as opportunities for growth and transformation.
And intentional suffering is taking that a step further.
Right. It's about consciously choosing to endure hardship.
Okay.
Not because you're a masochist,
right,
but because you want to cultivate patience and acceptance and inner strength.
So it's about recognizing that suffering is, part of the human experience.
Right, and learning to work with it.
Exactly. Not letting it control us.
These sound very similar to some Buddhist teachings about accepting suffering and detaching from desire.
Right. There are some parallels.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that Gurdjieff's goals were different.
Right.
Buddhism emphasizes liberation from suffering and enlightenment. Gurdjieff's focus was more on transforming human beings into conscious, awake, and capable individuals who can engage with the world in a new way.
So it's about mastering ourselves.
Yeah.
So we can master our lives.
Exactly.
Not about
escaping.
Escaping from it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of these practices are really about cultivating that inner strength and awareness.
Okay, I want to circle back to the Enneagram.
Right.
And that whole hologram idea, because that's what I'm really...
It's a fascinating concept.
Yeah, it is.
Isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
So how does that traditional perspective differ from Gurdjieff's?
Right.
And how can we see it as a map for both the universe and the soul's journey?
Great questions.
Yeah.
They lead us to a deeper exploration of the Enneagram's symbolism and meaning.
All right, so this traditional perspective on the Enneagram.
Yeah.
You said it's like a hologram of the universe.
Right.
Reflecting both the macrocosm and the microcosm.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big claim.
It is.
How does that actually play out in the Enneagram itself?
Well, it all starts at the circle.
Okay.
The circle represents the unmanifest absolute.
Okay.
The ultimate source of all creation, the pure potentiality from which everything emerges.
So like the blank canvas before the first brushstroke.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so the circle is like the starting point, the ground zero.
The ground zero of existence.
Yeah. What about all the points and the lines
right.
inside the Enneagram?
So the points and the lines trace this process of emanation, this kind of unfolding of creation from that initial state of pure potentiality. And point 9 at the top of the Enneagram represents the first emanation from the absolute, the point of pure being, the source of all manifestation.
So point 9 is like that first ripple in the cosmic pond.
I like that,
the first glimmer of like somethingness from nothingness.
Beautiful way to put it.
And
then the lines and the other points symbolize the further unfolding of creation, the descent from pure being into the realm of manifestation. And the triangle within the Enneagram, connecting points 3, 6, and 9, represents the 3 fundamental forces that govern that process. And each of the other points represents a different stage of development, a different level of reality as creation continues to unfold.
So we're not just talking about personality types here.
No, it's bigger than that.
This is like a cosmic blueprint. A map of how the universe
itself
came into being.
Exactly.
Wow.
But remember, the Enneagram is a hologram. It reflects both the macrocosm and the microcosm. So this same process of emanation, this unfolding of creation, is also happening within each individual human being.
Sort of like little mini universes.
In a way, yes.
Each of us going through the same stages of development as the universe itself.
That's the idea.
What?
The traditional view sees the Enneagram as a map of the soul's journey. A symbol of this process of moving from unconsciousness to consciousness. From fragmentation to wholeness. Each point represents a different stage in that journey. A different challenge, a different potential.
That's a lot.
It is.
So how does Gurdjieff's interpretation fit into all of this? Is he just completely wrong?
Well, the essay doesn't totally dismiss him. It acknowledges that he was working with genuine esoteric knowledge, but maybe he distorted or misinterpreted.
Got it. So he had some of the pieces.
Some of the pieces.
But not the whole picture.
And the essay argues that this traditional perspective offers a more comprehensive and coherent understanding that resonates with, a lot of ancient wisdom traditions and gives us a deeper insight into reality and the human condition.
Man, this deep dive has been quite a journey.
It has.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
Just a glimpse.
You've given our listener and me a lot to think about.
That's the beauty of these deep dives, right?
It is.
It sparks curiosity, opens new perspectives.
New ways of seeing things.
Yeah,
we journeyed through Gurdjieff's ideas. Some of them pretty out there.
A little controversial.
His cosmology, essence, and personality, those challenging practices.
Self-remembering, all that.
And we ended up at this fascinating traditional perspective.
The hologram.
On the Enneagram. As like a map of the universe and the soul's journey.
Pretty amazing.
It is. It's a lot. So what resonates with you?
What sparks your curiosity?
What do you want to explore further?
What calls out to you?
And
if this traditional perspective on the Enneagram really piques your interest, think about what this symbolic map might reveal about your own journey of transformation and self-discovery, and what insights could you glean from those alternative interpretations that we mentioned.
That the essay talked about.
Each of them offers a unique lens to understand the Enneagram. These are questions worth pondering as you continue your own depth dive.
Into the mysteries of all and everything.
Exactly.
Beautifully put. And as always, we encourage you to keep digging.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning.
Keep diving deeper.
Until next time.
See you then.